Hello, I'm Carol from Biogents, and I will show you today our new BG Counter app. Several parts of the user interface will seem familiar to you, but there are also some important improvements and changes. The biggest change is that handling a high number of traps is now much easier. Also, data analysis can now be performed in a more convenient and comprehensive way. Storing data for each location instead of for each IMEI is a fundamental difference to the former version of the app. We implemented this change as it reduces logistical effort, especially when you have many BG Counter units. Before showing you the new app, I'll explain the details of the new data storage concept and what it means to you with the help of some examples. In the new app, data are stored by location. Locations can be assigned either manually or automatically. When using the automatic mode, which is the default setting, the transmitted GPS coordinates of the BG Counter are used to determine the location by geofencing. Let's go through some examples to see better what this means. In the first example, you have several traps, but you use them only during a part of the year, because in your region mosquitoes aren't active all year round. In the previous app version, after the winter break, you had to make sure to place the same BG Counter unit back to the same location to have continuity of historical data. But now, when you put your traps back to their locations, it doesn't matter which BG Counter unit is placed where. However, the geolocation mode has to be set to automatic, and the trap must be placed within 100 meters of its previous position. In the second example, you have a BG Counter that you use on two different locations, depending on the time of the year. So in spring, you might want to monitor the activity of floodwater mosquitoes close to a lake or a river. But later in summer, you want to use the BG Counter in a school garden, as there turned out to be many tiger mosquitoes. In the former app version, the data collected for both locations would be stored together for the same IMEI. Now, the data will be automatically stored independently for the two different locations. The same would also apply if we would use the same counter on more than two locations. In the third example, a BG Counter is defective and is replaced by a new device. The new BG Counter is placed at the same location or within 100 meters of the previous position. In the former app version, the data for this location would be stored for different IMEIs. Now, the data for the two BG Counter units will be stored for the same location. In some cases, it might be necessary to install two traps within a distance of 100 meters. This is also possible. You should, however, set the geolocation mode to fixed so that you can manually create the two locations. Now I will give you a short overview of the user interface and the main menu of the new BG Counter app. Details about the more complex sections, which are the dashboard and the analyzer, will be covered in separate chapters. This is how the user interface of the new app looks like. Like in the previous app, you come straight to the dashboard when entering the web page, and the main menu is located here at the left. First, I want to show you an improvement that applies to all tables in the app. They now include sorting and search functions, and this makes your life much easier when you have many traps. So this is the search function and this is the sort functions, the arrow that will pop up when you hover over with the mouse. So you can, for instance, sort the catch count of the previous night, or you can specify things like you want to only see traps that collected more than, let's say, 30 mosquitoes. Throughout the app, you'll also find these info icons. When you hover over them with the mouse, you get some additional information. Now I will guide you briefly through the different sections of the main menu. So the dashboard is what we are already in, and it gives you an overview of all locations in the form of a table and a map, and is also the place where you can change the settings of your traps. As there are several changes in the dashboard, I will present it in more detail in a separate chapter. The analyzer is an entirely new feature that allows you to perform more comprehensive data analysis than it was possible before. As the analyzer includes several new features, I will also show you more details in a separate chapter, but I would like to give you a small preview already now. So before analyzing, you choose what to analyze. So in this case, there's a list of your locations, so you can choose one or multiple locations, but it is also possible to perform group-based analysis. So you could, for instance, compare different cities with each other. Now I will choose 2 locations, click the Analyze button, and by default you see the catches of today. Now you can change the time range of what you want to analyze. So let's choose, for instance, this month. And what you can also change, which is important, is the frequency of your data. So here you have one data point for each day. But if you want a higher data resolution, like the raw data, you can have 15 minutes data, but you can also have it on 1 week or even 1 month. So importantly, the analyzer is also the place where you can download your data. So in this case, it would download the data of the 2 chosen locations for the chosen time range. The next topic in the main menu is traps. So this is a list of your BG counter units as defined by the IMEI. This is also the place where you would add new traps. So when you click here, you can enter here the IMEI or IMEIs of new traps and register them. So the trap management table gives you an overview of some important information like the subscription status or the current location where that BG counter unit is assigned to, last connection, when your subscription expires, and things like that. I've already mentioned the geolocation mode when I talked about data storage based on location. So here in the trap management table, there's a column where you can change the geolocation mode from automatic to fixed. The users section is like it used to be in the former app version. This is the place where you invite users and give them a role. The roles you can choose from are administrator, operator, or observer. New is the observer role. It is similar to what used to be the guest in the former app. An observer cannot change settings, add traps, create locations, or invite users. However, the interesting new feature is that observers can be invited by admins of different accounts. The observers are then able to see and analyze the trap data of all of these accounts with one single login, as long as they were invited with the same email address. In this chapter, I'll explain how to use the dashboard. It gives you an overview of your location, allows you to find out which of your traps might have some issues, and is the place where you can change your traps settings. When you access the dashboard, you first get an overview of your locations in form of a map and a table. This location table helps you to plan your operations, as you can easily identify the locations with a high catch rate, the locations that have a catch rate above a certain threshold that you can define yourself, or the traps that are having some issues, like for example running low on CO2 or having a bad signal or a fan failure. The prominent first column of the locations table gives you a quick overview of possible issues with your traps by displaying the color-coded dashboard warning icons. So a green icon means everything is fine, blue is for infos such as there is currently no counter assigned to this location, yellow icon for a warning, and red icons for error messages such as CO2 is empty. So when you hover over a yellow, blue or red warning icon, the type of warning is displayed. So when you click on the name of a location, you get access to the location summary page. Here at the left you have the location info table. This is a collection of relevant information for this location, such as its name, coordinates, IMEI, and geolocation mode. It also includes the geotags country, state, and city that are automatically assigned when a location is being created. Additionally, there are the two customizable geotags custom group 1 and 2. Here at the middle you have three charts. The upper chart is the catch count, the default view is of today. Here at the right you can choose if you want to additionally visualize small and large objects. Here in this upper panel you can change the time range of what you see here in all of the three charts. So you can go from today to this week, this month, or you have several other options here. And so in this case you see the data of this week all displayed in the charts. So here in the middle chart you have the temperature, relative humidity and dew point, and here again you can choose to only visualize a part of the information. And here below is the chart for the parameters battery voltage and ambient light. So here you see the typical battery voltage pattern of a trap that runs on a solar panel. And you should take care, or you should check that during the nights your battery voltage is above 11.5 volts. So here at the right there's a catch statistics table, and whatever is displayed here always refers to the time range that you choose here in this menu above. When you click on the View Edit button, you can change the settings of this specific location. It is also possible to edit multiple traps at the same time. This can be very handy if you want to change the same settings for many traps at the same time. For example, when you have 20 traps and you want to assign the same CO2 schedule for all of them. So in this case, you go to the dashboard and then you use the check boxes to choose the traps where you want to change the settings, and then you hit the View Edit button, and in brackets it will be displayed the number of locations that you chose. And then again you will have access to the settings. So here you will see again a list of the locations that you chose before in the locations table of the dashboard. And everything that you change now here in the settings will be assigned to all of these locations. The CO2 settings, the schedule and the communication settings are similar to what you are used to from the old app. The following settings are new. So here you have the geolocation tag settings. I mentioned these geotags already before, and each location gets 3 geotags automatically assigned, which is country, state and city. But as it is likely that you need to assign your traps to a smaller spatial unit, such as a neighborhood for example, you can use the customized tags for that. You can assign 2 custom tags to each location. So you might, for example, use custom tag 1 for the neighborhood and custom tag 2 to characterize the biotope, or whatever makes sense in the context of your monitoring. These tags allow you to make group-based analysis, as I will show you later in the analyzer video. Here you see the mosquito catch index threshold. This is an interesting new feature, as here you can specify what you consider as too many mosquitoes per day for a specific location. In the dashboard location table, there's a column called index that indicates if a location was above threshold since last noon. In the analyzer, you will also find a threshold map where it is indicated which of your traps were above threshold, and in the analyzer tables it is indicated on how many days in a given time range the trap was above the threshold. Here are the ambient light settings. So the ambient light sensor of the BG counter is used to distinguish between day and night. This is relevant for the analyzer, where you can visualize day and night separately. In most cases, you won't need to change the ambient light settings, as most of the times 0 lux is the right setting for night. However, at locations with a high nocturnal light pollution, it might be necessary that you change to 1 or 2 lux. But before you do that, you should check on the location summary page the graph for battery voltage. I suggest you take a time range view of 7 days. And here you can isolate the ambient light data. In the case of this trap, you can see that during the night, ambient light is always on 1 lux. So in case of this specific trap, you should change the threshold to 1 lux. The analyzer is a new tool that offers more comprehensive analysis of your mosquito count data than the dashboard. You can now visualize and summarize your data at 15 minutes intervals, but also for aggregated data on a daily, weekly or monthly basis. Now, it is also possible to compare traps with each other and to perform group-based analysis. When you access the analyzer, you see the analyzer overview table. Here you can choose what you want to analyze. You have several options. You can analyze a single location or compare multiple locations with each other, and you can perform group-based analysis. First, I want to demonstrate how the analyzer works with one location. By default, you will see a graph of the present day with a temporal resolution of 15 minutes. So this is very similar to what you see in the catch count graph in the dashboard. Under the graph, there's always a table with summary statistics. There are several parameters that you can change in the global settings for the graph and the table. First of all, here you can change the time range. So from today, you can switch to this week. You have the view of the whole week from Sunday to Saturday. And then you can use this previous and next button to go to the week that happened before. You can also change to this month, and what you get is a calendar view. So in this case, it's the 2nd of August, you don't see so much, but if you go to previous months, you have a calendar view of July, always from Sunday to Saturday. Before changing the data frequency, I want to show you an interesting function for data on a time range longer than a day on a temporal resolution of 15 minutes. Let's say you want to analyze the mosquito activity of a week or a month in order to see what is the peak activity time. For example, because you want to know when it's the best time for adulticide applications. When analyzing day-by-day data, this might be difficult to see, as patterns may change. So in this case, you can click on this histogram button. The histogram view gives you an average mosquito activity at each 15 minutes time window for the number of selected days, which in this case is the whole month of July. So in July, on average, the peak time of mosquito activity is around 9 o'clock in the evening. You also might be interested on activity patterns on an aggregated temporal scale. Here in the upper panel, you can also change the frequency. This means the data will be aggregated so that there is one data point per day, per week, or per month. So when we go back to the line chart of the monthly view, and you change the frequency to 1 day, you have one data point for each day instead of one data point for each 15 minutes. And the same when you go to a week, you have the sum of mosquitoes collected per week for each data point. For aggregated data, you can also use that day and night switch that appears here in the upper right side of the graph. This can be handy if you want to know the sum of mosquitoes collected per night, or to get a separate overview of activity patterns of night and day active mosquitoes over time. So here is the day, the upper graph is for day, the lower is for night, and then you see per date the number of mosquitoes, the sum of mosquitoes collected for each day. And what defines the night here is the ambient light sensor in the BG counter. When analyzing one location, you can select all metrics at the same time. This is, however, not possible when you analyze multiple locations. So here in the upper panel at metrics, you can choose mosquito, small and large at the same time, or just a part of the selection. Let's go back to the overview table and choose two locations at the same time. Then you use the check boxes to select the traps that you want to compare. And then you click on this blue button, Analyze, and in brackets it will be shown the number of locations that you chose to analyze. So again, you see the graph of the present day with the mean count per 50 minutes. Now it's the mean count because it's the mean 50 minutes time window for the two locations together. Here in the upper right side, you see the compare location switch. When you turn this on, you see one line for each of the two locations. As I mentioned before, when analyzing multiple locations, you can only visualize one metric at a time. When analyzing multiple locations or a group, you can choose the same time range and frequency. So when choosing this week for time range and 1 week for frequency, what you'll get is a horizontal bar chart that shows you the sum of mosquitoes collected in each of the chosen locations. All of the other functions are the same as for one location. Now I want to show you the group analyzer. Like for locations, you can either choose one or multiple groups. So here at the Group By drop-down menu, you can choose which kind of grouping factor you want to use. As you can see, these are the geotags that I showed you previously in the video. So there's country and state. So these two are probably not so important for most of the customers. Then there's city, custom group 1 and custom group 2. So for custom groups, it's important that you assign the groups in a way that makes sense for you. For example, custom group 1 for neighborhood or city area might be very handy. Let's select, in this case, the group state equals Florida. And what you get is like a shortcut of selecting each location that belongs to a certain group. So for example, instead of selecting one by one all of the traps of a specific neighborhood, you can choose the custom group that includes all of these traps. So you can then use the Compare Traps switch to visualize the lines of all of the traps of the group separately, or to get one line with the mean catch count of all of the group members. An interesting feature when you select multiple locations or one multiple group are the density map and the threshold map. The density map shows you which traps collected more mosquitoes. The darker the dot, the more mosquitoes were collected on a certain location. The density map always shows the daily mean catch count. In this way, data remain comparable when you select a longer time range. The threshold map, on the other hand, shows you which of your traps were above threshold. So the dot is either white for a trap that was below threshold or red when a trap was above threshold. For the threshold map to be able to work, you must define a mosquito catch index threshold in the dashboard settings. For example, if you have a cut-off value above which catch count you will apply a mosquito control measure, you could set that threshold to this value. As the situation can be different depending on the location, you can set the threshold individually for each of your locations. You can find more detailed information on the new BG Counter app in the updated BG Counter manual. You find the manual and more resources on our webpage.